Money, so you better retire them right. They work hard for the money, so hard for it, honey. They work hard for the city money, so retire them, please retire them right.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Lois Scott, immediate past president of IFPTE Local 21, and I retired after 29 years of service with the planning department. Please make this measure fair to the voters and to the 105,000 members of the health services system who are past and present union members. Remove the structural changes to the Health Services System Commission that governs a well-run multi-employer trust fund from the pension issues in this charter amendment. Federal labor law requires a balance of governance of private sector health trust funds. Why should our city, a labor town, advocate that public sector employees have a less balanced board? The 105,000 members are getting good services with increasing emphasis on wellness. If the Health Services Board is not broke, fixing it doesn't result in cost saving, you don't need to change it. Please sever the few pages on the health services system. Don't do tricks on the voters and the public workers and retired.
Can't sing. However, I think there was a major concern in these amendments, basically attacking the COLAs of current city workers. COLA, of course, is cost of living in one of the most expensive cities in the United States. And for instance, I brought my paycheck here, and it's from my retiree. It amounts to about $25,000 a year, I can show you. It ain't much money. And there are thousands of retirees who earn much less than I do. This is so that attacking COLAs, in effect, will drive people into poverty. The crisis that initiated this problem was a loss of $4 billion in the retirement fund. Not 4 million, 4 billion. And result was that somehow city workers will have to pay for one way or the other for that loss, even though it was the fiduciary duty of the city to protect those funds, which we paid every month from our paychecks into that fund. So it was really our money that was lost, of course, in Wall Street. We believe there was a political motivation in all this, just as there's a political motivation in attacking the Social Security currently, because it's now in style to attack retirees. There is apparently no lack of funds to provide for a tunnel which will cost $1.6 billion. Apparently no lack of funds to provide for payroll.
Good afternoon, my name is Kay Walker, and I'm here to represent SEIU 10-to-1 retirees. Our chapter has taken a position against both amendments, and we are opposing this amendment today based on the governance, the new or proposed governance of the health service system, and you're going to hear a lot about that from some of the POB people, but it does weigh in favor of what the city wants, and we've seen this over and over at the health service system meetings. We know that this will cause costs to go up for the beneficiaries, and we just don't have as much representation when the board is composed of, instead of 4-3 in our favor, perhaps the opposite. And I don't hate to call it a wild card, but most likely would be who the controller proposed would most likely be voting along with the city. This system is for the beneficiaries. It's not to keep the city's costs down. That's not why it exists. In terms of the COLA, I agree with Earl Gilman, another SEIU person. There are many people that receive under $25,000 a year. I am one of those folks. People receiving under $20,000 a year, and I got those statistics from the retirement board, are $4,500. It's probably the same or more for people making $25,000 or under, which is maybe a third to half of the people that get the retirement. We are not in good shape. Those COLAs may not amount to much for people that are getting more, and that amount may be like $300 to $400, maybe $500 a year, but to somebody at that bracket, that means maybe having a cell phone, going to a doctor when you need to because of co-pays.
My name's Judy Terracina. I worked 33 years for the city and retired in adult probation department. Please remove the provisions in the city retirement and health care benefits charter amendment page 265. That would change the composition of the Health Service Board and reduce the supermajority vote of 5 to a simple majority of 4 to approve yours and my health care plans, rates, benefits, and other major decisions. If the city administration is allowed to appoint 4 members, they would have the majority on the board. All majority decisions would be made by this majority of 4. It would eliminate the voice of the employees, you, and the retirees, us, on the crucial decisions. It would take us back to Willie Brown's administration in 2004 when they couldn't even find the funds to pay the doctors that submitted bills. Patients would call in for assistance. They wouldn't have an answer on the other end of the line because there wasn't enough staffing. Doctors didn't want to have patients with this plan because they didn't know if they'd get paid. I hope we don't return to 2004.
My name is Herbert Weiner. I'm a retired social worker who worked for the city and county of San Francisco. This legislation is too important to be buried in the sea of legislation regarding pension reform. The issue of restructuring the composition of the board is very important because this board has operated very efficiently in the interests of people who are served by the health service system and also the people of San Francisco. The health service system has successfully passed every internal audit. Its financial performance and its fiscal responsibility is impeccable. And its present composition is necessary because deliberation is necessary when you determine benefits and when you also determine the costs. Because of the above, I'm recommending that the proposed charter revisions be removed from the pension reform legislation proposed by Mayor Lee. My concern is that I don't want to see the clock turned back. This is too darned important to be buried in a sea of legislation regarding pension reform.
Advisors, Bob Muscat, Chair of the Labor Council Public Employee Committee. Let me start by saying it wasn't really fair that after 2008, the 2008 downturn, the attention turned from Wall Street to government and government spending and pension plans, but in fact it has, and all of us had to face up to the reality of declining revenues in government and also increasing pension costs. So however fair it was really kind of important for city employees to step up and face that reality and work with leaders here in San Francisco to try and find the right response to the reality of that situation. And that, in fact, is what we believe we have done. We have spent 6 months trying to develop this ballot measure, over $200,000 in actuarial expenses. As you now know, the ballot measure is over 250 pages of very, very hard work representing the very best ideas that all of us have, working together to try and do something that we think is fair to everybody that will be impacted by this ballot measure. It is balanced between what the city will pay and what city employees will pay. It's balanced between what new employees who haven't come to work will pay, what actives will pay, and what retirees will pay. Anybody can be critical of any one single piece of it, but it really is a comprehensive package that we feel is very well done and fair given the circumstances. And we appreciate the hard work of the legal staff, the HR staff, the mayor's office, the Board of Supervisors, and everybody that worked on this measure. Thank you very much.
My name is Jerry Meister, the Vice Chair of Protect Our Benefits. I'm also the head of UESF Retired. I was a teacher in the San Francisco Unified School District for 39 and a half years. Okay? I think I just heard the previous speaker mention that this was fair, and perhaps it is a fair charter amendment. As far as pension goes, it's a fair amendment for everybody working for the city who's in the system. What I don't see is any inclusion with the health service part of any of the people who are involved from the school district, from the community college district, and from the court system. There are almost 20% of the people in the health service system who have simply been left out of this picture. That's something that I think should be considered, and I certainly think that governance is just as important to the rest of us who are in the system, and that should be a very important part of the reason that you should act to remove the governance sections only from the current amendment. Thank you.
Tim Paulson, I'm the Executive Director of the San Francisco Labor Council. We represent over 100 unions here in town, both in the public and the private sector. And I just want to echo what Bob Muscat, the chair of our Public Employee Committee, said, and that is that there has been some very intense negotiations and many hard decisions that have been made over the last half year. This was not easy work to put and craft all this together. It cost a lot of money. It probably caused a few marriages to break up in the middle of it because of the amount of time that's going on. But I want to applaud the Public Employee Committee and their group for all the negotiating that they've done to do something. I hear from people all around the country, whether or not it's in San Jose, New York, no matter what. How did you in San Francisco be able to get something to put on the ballot that had consensus, that worked with the mayor's office, the supervisors, the community groups, and almost every single, matter of fact, I would say every single union, whether or not they're a member of the Labor Council or not. And it was a tremendous effort, and all eyes are on San Francisco. So I want to applaud the negotiators that were showing us how to get it done. Thank you.
My name is Dave Sutter. I'm a retired city employee. I would like to start out by adding some information to what the labor representatives have said. Retirees were never allowed to be at the table at which the pension reform amendment was negotiated, although we requested a presence. We are a key element as far as the city is concerned and the city's success as a city over the last 50, 60 years. And for retirees not to be allowed representation on negotiating committees that are determining benefit reductions and other matters that directly affect the retirees' well-being is totally unacceptable and totally outrageous. I like to focus on what you may not be seeing in these proposals. They are an infringement on the representative democracy of the Health Service Board. These proposals by Supervisor Elsberdt will result in less representation for the active and retired employees of the city as far as health plan decisions are concerned. I'd like to draw your attention to a parallel to the Board of Supervisors. These proposals are as if Jeff Adachi came up with a charter amendment that required 6 board members to be appointed by the mayor and only 5 to be elected by the citizens of San Francisco. I'm sure nobody on your side of this railing would support such a proposal, but that's exactly the kind of rollback of representative democracy in the HSB that Supervisor Elsberdt is asking you to approve.
What you have in front of you is, as has been discussed in public comment, a fully vetted, a fully discussed piece of legislation that is really brought to you through a collaborative process. 6 months of very intense work that at times got a bit heated, probably more than a bit heated, but something that I am very proud of, and I think every member who has sponsored it is proud of, and I think we've heard from our partners in labor, they are proud of it. It is comprehensive in scope. It does not just focus on the pension issue. It also focuses on our health care issue. It is not a proposal that ignores 1,000+ of our employees. It talks about our CalPERS employees and gets savings as a result of that. It is not a proposal that unintentionally, I hope, in the alternative version, increases the retirement benefit of thousands of our city employees who happen to take a vested retirement. This is a well-thought-out, well-vetted ballot measure. And just today, the Comptroller's Office has finally put together some numbers that demonstrate what this ballot measure saves and what the public defender's ballot measure would save. And I really want to put those numbers in perspective because I fear in a campaign, you're not going to get that opportunity in a 5-second soundbite, or you might not get it in a 10-word mailer. And I think this is very important to consider what this potential campaign could end up being all about. Over the next 10 years, the city is projected to spend $4.5 billion on retirement. $4.5 billion. And the difference between the two measures is less than 5% of that. We will be having a campaign over $250 million when we're talking in scope of $4.4 billion. And what I would say to hopefully the public defender who is watching this, declare victory. You've won. You push the envelope. We are in a great place. Let's not have a campaign over 5%, particularly when the numbers that are here from the Comptroller are extremely dubious when it comes to the legal footing that the public defender has. Comptroller doesn't opine on the legal merits, but we know ourselves from the memo we received from the city attorney that frankly we're pushing the envelope. We're pushing the envelope on the vested rights theory. The public defender is blowing up that envelope. We just cannot take that risk. And regardless of the amendment we made last week, if both measures were to pass and his measure were to get more votes, we're not risking the delta of that $250 million. We're not risking that extra 5%. You risk the entire amount. And so he is going to take a gamble for the entire $1 billion savings over the next 10 years that the mayor's proposal delivers. And I say that's a gamble that is completely irresponsible to take with the taxpayers' money. I want to thank everybody who has worked on this, in particular our partners in labor. Look what they have done. They have stepped forward with $1 billion in savings over the next 10 years. That is something that should absolutely be commended, and there's a great deal of gratitude I know on my part, but I believe, as we'll see over the next few months, the city's part for their efforts in stepping forward, and I thank them for that. I thank the mayor for his leadership, and I really do, you know, it's...
I don't take any of the things that were said lightly. I know that we're talking about very serious issues here. That said, I have always believed that when it comes to something as complicated and as important as issues of retirement, pension, healthcare, that you're not going to come up with a solution unilaterally, that you're not going to be able to address those issues and truly solve the overarching concerns if you do not bring all of the stakeholders to the table, if you do not find a middle ground or at least a position that everyone can live with. And I think balance is the word that Supervisor Elsberdt used, and to me that's the key word here. How do we strike the right balance so that all of the concerns of the different stakeholders are taken into account? Striking the right balance often means that you have things that not everyone is happy with. But striking the right balance, I think, is what we need to do with something as important as this. And even though I appreciate the comments of the workers, I think it is quite telling that the leadership of the Labor Council, the leadership of our various labor partners are here today to show their support for this measure. And it is a testament to their work. It is a testament to the work of Mayor Lee, who has worked vehemently to bring folks together, to Supervisor Elsberdt, who has been talking about these issues certainly since I got on the board. Thank you for pushing this issue forward. And I do agree that the public defender should declare victory, because a lot of the things that are here today, that what we're about to vote on, and what has been put forward is something that reflects a lot of the points that he has made. And my hope is that as we move forward to the November ballot, that to the extent possible, we have a united front as an elected family. I think that is something that will be in the best interest of the taxpayers. And I look forward to the campaign. But because of the hard work that everyone has done, including the work from my labor partners, I will be supporting this today. And I want to thank again everyone for the good work.
My name is Joan Wood. I too am a retired city employee, 32 years, Department of Social Services and SF General Hospital. I've been retired since 1986, quite a long time. And during the time that I worked, I was a single mom most of the time. I had quite a bit of help from my parents. I had to have, because they took 8% out of my check every single payday for 32 years, along with Social Security, of course, and along with health insurance premiums and disability, as I recall. At the present time, my pension is about $32,000 a year, so it's about the same. My pension is about the same as the highest salary that I made. It sounds shocking when you put it that way, but I wonder how many of you could live on $32,000 a year. Fortunately, I also have Social Security and some investment income. What I know is that not everybody at the present time that works for the city is having 8% deducted from their checks, and the charter amendment looks as if it's been amended a few times. I didn't come here to speak about it. I'm not very well informed. But if your votes affect the amount of money that's being deducted for pensions, I certainly hope that you will do something to see that other employees have that same deduction. I lived through it, and you know, I'm happy to have the pension. I read the other day that commissioners as well as elected officials also now somehow get the same health insurance benefits that I get. I don't know who is paying the premiums. I certainly hope that some premiums are being deducted from any and all of you that may benefit from that. Thank you. Oh, I also picked up that this charter amendment will affect the number of elected officials that are going to make decisions about pensions. And I think electing is better than appointing. Thank you.
My name is Jean Thomas. I'm a longtime city resident and I'm a retired employee. References to the health care section of this amendment. What is its purpose, really? To save money? But that hasn't been established. Eliminating an employee elected representative and substituting a controller's representative, what does that do? Frankly, we see this as a power grab, an attempt to reduce the health care benefits for active and retired city and county employees, quite simply. We remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that Proposition B last year failed because the voters believed it was an attack on active and retired health care. Also, recent polls show that voters don't want retiree benefits taken away from them. Thank you.
My name is James Elliott. I worked for 37.5 years with the city. I'm a retired auto mechanic. I'd recommend that the board take this health service system out of this measure because Elsberdt himself said it's not a money saver. What it is, the way it is now, we have 4 members elected and 3 appointed, and we've established that 5 will be a quorum to vote on anything. The way this is written up now, there'll be 3 elected and 4 appointed, and only 4 are required to pass anything. The way it is now, we have to talk to the other side to get a vote. The way it's going to be, they don't have to talk to us. They'll have the 4 votes, and they'll do anything they want. I respectfully request that you pull this health service part out of this charter amendment. Thank you.
Supervisors, hello. My name is Kathy Helton, and I'm a current City and County of San Francisco employee. I worked really closely with the unions that crafted this amendment during last year's Prop B. So the position I'm going to take is a particularly hard one for me because I respect those people a lot. But I'm going to offer you a viewpoint that I don't think has been publicly spoken. This isn't something, you know, that this is something that I had hoped to resolve behind closed doors, but I've spoken to a lot of members of my union. I'm with SEIU, and where the lower to middle income earners that every union and every politician in this city stood behind last year during Mr. Adachi's Proposition B, and deigned to protect because we couldn't afford the cost that Proposition B would cost us last year. However, somehow, and I wasn't at that table, but during the crafting of this charter amendment, those same people that we stood so strongly behind last year got left out. We have, you know, workers, there is the measure does allow for people who make under $50,000, but the people who make $60,000, $65,000, these are single parents, families. This is going to cost them more than Proposition B would have ever cost them. And I don't know how we could have stood up last year and said, we cared so much about these people, and I'm one of them. I'm a single parent. I'm in that price range. I'm not going to be able to afford this.
Additional discussion. If we could take a roll call vote on item 45.
On item 45, President Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Supervisor Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Elsbernd? Elsbernd, aye. Supervisor Farrell? Aye. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Mercarimi?
Aye.
Mercarimi, aye. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Avalos?
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 11 ayes.
This charter amendment is submitted.